The PlayStation 2 is a home video game console that was manufactured by Sony Computer Entertainment. It is Sony's second installment in the PlayStation series. It was released on March 4, 2000, in Japan, followed by North America and Europe later the same year. The sixth-generation console competed with the Sega Dreamcast, Microsoft Xbox, and Nintendo GameCube. The PlayStation 2 is the best-selling video game console in history, selling over 155 million units, 150 million confirmed by Sony in 2011. More than 3,874 game titles have been released for the PS2 since launch, and more than 1.5 billion copies have been sold. Sony later manufactured several smaller, lighter revisions of the console known as slimline models, and in 2006 introduced the successor, the PlayStation 3. Even with the PlayStation 3 release, the PlayStation 2 remained popular well into the seventh generation and continued to be produced until January 4, 2013. When Sony finally announced that the PlayStation 2 had been discontinued after almost 13 years of production, one of the longest runs for a video game console. Despite the announcement, new games for the console continued to be produced until the end of 2013, including Final Fantasy XI, Seekers of Adoulin for Japan, Pro Evolution Soccer 2014 for North America and Europe, and FIFA 14 for Brazil. Sony unveiled a PlayStation 4 console the following month on February 20, 2013. History. Sony announced the PlayStation 2 on March 1, 1999. The video game console was positioned as a competitor to Sega's Dreamcast, the first sixth-generation console to be released. Although the main rival of the PS2 ended up being the Microsoft Xbox. Despite Sony's announcement, the Dreamcast went on to a very successful North American launch later that year, selling over 500,000 units within 2 weeks. Soon after the Dreamcast's North American launch, Sony unveiled the PlayStation 2 at the Tokyo Game Show in September 1999. Sony showed fully playable demos of upcoming PlayStation 2 games including Gran Turismo 2000 and Tekken Tag Tournament, which showed the console's graphic abilities and power. The PS2 was launched in March 2000 in Japan, October in North America and November in Europe. Sales of the console, games and accessories pulled in $250 million on the first day, beating the $97 million made on the first day of the Dreamcast. Directly after its release, it was difficult to find PS2 units on retailer shelves due to manufacturing delays. Another option was purchasing the console online through auction websites such as eBay, where people paid over $1,000 for the console. The PS2 initially sold well partly on the basis of the strength of the PlayStation brand and the console's backward compatibility, selling over 980,000 units in Japan by March 5, 2000, one day after launch. This allowed the PS2 to tap the large install base established by the PlayStation, another major selling point over the competition. Later, Sony added new development kits for game developers and more PS2 units for consumers. This made the console a low-cost entry into the home theater market. The success of the PS2 at the end of 2000 caused Sega problems both financially and competitively, and Sega announced the discontinuation of the Dreamcast in March 2001, just 18 months after its successful launch. The PS2 remained as the only active sixth-generation console for over 6 months, before it would face competition from newer rivals, the Nintendo GameCube and Microsoft's Xbox, which were then released. Many analysts predicted a close three-way matchup among the three consoles, the Xbox having the most powerful hardware, while the GameCube was least expensive console, and Nintendo changed its policy to encourage third-party developers. And while the PlayStation 2 theoretically had the weakest specs of the three, it had a head start due to its installed base plus strong developer commitment, as well as a built-in DVD player. While the PlayStation 2's initial games lineup was considered mediocre, this changed during the 2001 holiday season with the release of several blockbuster games that maintained the PS2's sales momentum and held off its newer rivals. Sony also countered the Xbox by temporarily securing PlayStation 2 exclusives for highly anticipated games such as the Grand Theft Auto series and Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. Sony cut the price of the console in May 2002 from $299 to $199 in North America, making it the same price as the GameCube and $100 less than the Xbox. It also planned to cut the price in Japan around that time. It cut the price twice in Japan in 2003. In 2006, Sony cut the cost of the console in anticipation of the release of the PlayStation 3. Sony, unlike Sega with its Dreamcast, originally placed little emphasis on online gaming during its first few years, although that changed upon the launch of the online-capable Xbox. Coinciding with the release of Xbox Live, Sony released the PlayStation Network adapter in late 2002, with several online first-party titles released alongside it, such as SOCOM, U.S. Navy SEALs, to demonstrate its active support for Internet play. Sony also advertised heavily, and its online model had the support of Electronic Arts. Each did not offer online Xbox titles until 2004. Although Sony and Nintendo both started out late, and although both followed a decentralized model of online gaming where the responsibility is up to the developer to provide the servers, Sony's moves made online gaming a major selling point of the PS2. In September 2004, in time for the launch of Grand Theft Auto: San Andreas, Sony revealed a newer, slimmer PS2. After an apparent manufacturing issue, Sony reportedly underestimated demand, caused some initial slowdown in producing the new unit caused in part by shortages between the time the old units were cleared out and the new units were ready. The issue was compounded in Britain when a Russian oil tanker became stuck in the Suez Canal, blocking a ship from China carrying PS2s bound for the UK. During 1 week in November, British sales totaled 6,000 units, compared to 70,000 units a few weeks prior. There were shortages in more than 1,700 stores in North America on the day before Christmas. Hardware. PlayStation 2 software is distributed on CD-ROM and DVD-ROM. In addition, the console can play audio CDs and DVD movies, and is backwards compatible with PlayStation games. The PS2 also supports PlayStation memory cards and controllers. Although PS1 memory cards only work with PS1 games and the controllers may not support all functions for PS2 games, the standard PlayStation 2 memory card has an 8 MB capacity. There are a variety of non-Sony manufactured memory cards available for the PlayStation 2, allowing for a memory capacity larger than the standard 8 MB. The console also features USB and IEEE 1394 expansion ports. A hard disk drive can be installed in an expansion bay on the back of the console, and is required to play certain games, notably the popular Final Fantasy XI. This is only available on certain models. Technical specifications: the PlayStation 2 of May natively output video resolutions on SDTV and HDTV from 480i to 480p, while other games, such as Gran Turismo 4 and Tourist Trophy, are known to support upscaled 1080i resolution using any of the following standards. composite video, S-video, RGB, VGA, YPBPR component video, and D-terminal. Cables are available for all of these signal types. These cables also output analog stereo audio. Additionally, an RF modulator is available for the system to connect to older TVs. Digital audio may also be output by the console via its Toslink connector, which outputs 5.1 channel sound. Retail configurations. The PS2 has undergone many revisions, some only of internal construction and others involving substantial external changes. The PS2 is primarily differentiated between models featuring the original fat case design and slimline models, which were introduced at the end of 2004. In 2010, a television incorporating a PS2 was made available to consumers. The PS2 standard color is matte black. Several variations in color were produced in different quantities and regions, including ceramic white, light yellow, metallic blue, metallic silver, navy, opaque blue, opaque black, pearl white, sakura purple, satin gold, satin silver, snow white, super red, transparent blue, and also limited edition color pink, which was distributed in some regions such as Oceania and parts of Asia. In September 2004, Sony unveiled its third major hardware revision. Available in late October 2004, it was smaller, thinner, and quieter than the original versions and included a built-in Ethernet port. Due to its thinner profile, it did not contain the 3.5 expansion bay and therefore did not support the internal hard disk drive. It also lacked an internal power supply until her later revision, similar to the GameCube, and had a modified multi-tap expansion. The removal of the expansion bay was criticized as a limitation due to the existence of titles such as Final Fantasy XI, which required the use of the HDD. The device was released in Japan on December 13, 2003, and was the first Sony product to include the XROS media buy interface. It did not sell well in the Japanese market and was not released anywhere else. Disk read error lawsuit. A class action lawsuit was filed against Sony Computer Entertainment America Inc. on July 16, 2002, in the Superior Court of California, County of San Mateo. The lawsuit addresses consumer reports of inappropriate, no-disk error messages and other problems associated with playing DVDs and CDs on the PlayStation 2. Sony settled its disk read error lawsuit by compensating the affected gamers with $25, a free game from a specified list, and the reduced cost repair or replacement of the damaged system. This settlement was subject to the court's approval, and hearings began in the US and Canada on April 28, 2006, and May 11, 2006, respectively. Games. PlayStation 2 software is distributed on CD-ROM and DVD-ROM. The PlayStation 2 offered some particularly high-profile exclusive games. Most main entries in the Grand Theft Auto, Final Fantasy, and Metal Gear Solid series were released exclusively for the console. Several series got their start on the PlayStation 2, including God of War, Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter, Devil May Cry, and Kingdom Hearts. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was the best-selling game on the console. Game releases peaked in 2004, but declined with the release of the PlayStation 3 in 2006. The last new game for the console in Asia is Final Fantasy XI. Seekers of Adulin. In North America and Europe is Pro Evolution Soccer 2014, and in South America is FIFA 14. Online functionality. PlayStation 2 users have the option to play select games over the Internet, using a broadband Internet connection in a PlayStation 2 network adapter, instead of having a unified, subscription-based online service like Xbox Live as competitor Microsoft later chose for its Xbox console. Online multiplayer functionality on the PlayStation 2 was the responsibility of the game publisher and is run on third-party servers. Most recent PlayStation 2 online games have been developed to exclusively support broadband internet access. Xbox Live similarly requires a broadband internet connection. The servers for many games have been shut down. Reception. Sales. The PlayStation 2 has sold over 150 million units worldwide as of March 31, 2012. In Europe, it has sold 48 million units as of May 6, 2008 according to Sony Computer Entertainment.It, while in North America, it has sold 50 million units as of December 2008. In Japan, the PS2 has sold 21,454,325 units as of October 1, 2008, according to Famitsu Enterbrain. In 2005, the PlayStation 2 became the fastest game console to reach 100 million units shipped, accomplishing the feat within 5 years and 9 months from its launch. Accessories. The PlayStation 2's DualShock 2 controller is largely identical to the PlayStation's DualShock, with the same basic functionality. However, it includes analog pressure sensitivity on the face, shoulder and D-pad buttons, replacing the digital buttons of the original. Like its predecessor, the DualShock 2 controller has force feedback, or vibration, functionality. It is lighter and includes 2 more levels of vibration. General optional hardware includes DualShock or DualShock 2 controllers, a PS2 DVD remote control, an internal or external hard disk drive, a network adapter, horizontal and vertical stands, PlayStation or PS2 memory cards, the multi-tap for PlayStation or PS2, a USB motion camera, a USB keyboard and mouse, and a headset. The original PS2 multi-tap cannot be plugged into the newer slim models, as the multi-tap connects to the memory card slot as well as the controller slot, and the memory card slot on the slimline is shallower. New slim design multi-taps were manufactured for these models, however third-party adapters also exist to permit original multi-taps to be used. Early versions of the PS2 could be networked via an A-Link port, though this had little game support and was dropped. Some third-party manufacturers have created devices that allow disabled people to access the PS2 through ordinary switches, etc. Some third-party companies, such as Joytech, have produced LCD monitor and speaker attachments for the PS2, which attach to the back of the console. These allow users to play games without access to a television as long as there is access to mains electricity or a similar power source. These screens can fold down onto the PS2 in a similar fashion to laptop screens. Music. There are many accessories for musical games, such as dance pads for Dance Revolution, In the Groove, and Pump It Up titles. Konami microphones for use with the Karaoke Revolution games, dual microphones, various guitar controllers, the drum set controller with the guitar controller and a USB microphone, and a Taiko drum controller for Taiko Drum Master. Controllers. Specialized controllers include light guns, fishing rod and reel controllers, a Dragon Quest VIII slime controller, a Final Fantasy X2 Tiny B dual pistol controller, an Onimusha 3 katana controller, and a Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller. Mouse. Unlike the PlayStation, which requires the use of an official Sony PlayStation mouse to play mouse-compatible games, the few PS2 games with mouse support work with a standard USB mouse as well as a USB trackball. Homebrew development. Using homebrew programs, it is possible to play various audio and video file formats on a PS2. Homebrew programs can also be used to play patched backups of original PS2 DVD games on unmodified consoles, and to install retail discs to an installed hard drive on older models. Homebrew emulators of older computer and gaming systems have been developed for the PS2. Sony released a Linux-based operating system for the PS2 in a package that also includes a keyboard, mouse, Ethernet adapter and HDD. In Europe and Australia, the PS2 comes with a free basic interpreter on the bundled demo disc. This allows users to create simple programs for the PS2. A port of the NETBSD project and Black Rhino GNU Linux, an alternative Debian-based distribution, are also available for the PS2.